To get more on this, we have an entertainment lawyer, Arthur Sims, and in Detroit, we have an anti-racism rights activist, Eugene Puryear. Thank you both for being with us on this story, because as we see a lot of these protests being cracked down on locally and federally, we can see how the social movement is ramping up online. So let's talk about Blackout Tuesday for a moment. Arthur, what is the message behind Blackout Tuesday? And do you think today, we have seen it's trending on Twitter and other social media platforms, do you think it's having an effect?
Well, the message is a resounding call to action. It's not a message just to pause, but to reflect and give thought and purpose to solving these problems. I think the response has been terrific in terms of the insightful action by individuals within the entertainment and sports industries. And it's causing people to be able to plan a way forward. I anticipate we're going to have this discussion for a long time. This problem did not begin overnight. It's been hundreds of years in the making. And as a child of civil rights workers from the 60s and the 50s and a child of the South, it's reflective of the problem overall, but the entertainment industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So is the sports industry, and African-American experience is interwoven in the industry to the highest extent. And I think that reflection is seen in our call to action, our purpose, our mission to resolve these problems and try to find a way forward.
Arthur, I want to put this next question to Eugene for a second. Eugene, we saw a lot of people on social media encouraging people online not to use the Black Lives Matter hashtag for this Blackout Tuesday. How are we seeing varying movements conflict with each other? And is that also sort of muddling the message when it comes to what these different movements are hoping to accomplish?
Well, I don't think it's muddling the message. I think at the end of the day, all of these things put together online, if you scroll through your Twitter timeline or scroll through your Facebook timeline, what's 100% clear is that tens of millions of people in the United States are very angry and very outraged about not just the murder of George Floyd, but racism in and of itself. I think some of the tensions that may have emerged come from the fact that, especially for many of these corporate brands, I think in many ways it's very hollow. I mean, you showed Apple there. I mean, allegedly going to be the first trillion-dollar company sometime soon, some people say. To me, blacking out their social media is almost meaningless in terms of the type of impact they can make. I mean, I think we need to start what people want to see is, there are some artists and entertainers who always speak out on this, but there are a lot of people who are posting Black images who no one has ever heard of before. And I think there's some anger and some frustration around that, because what people want to see consistent engagement, not just sort of clout seeking on social media. But I think a lot of it is well-meaning. I don't want to rip any one individual person in terms of the entertainer aspect. I think from the corporate media aspect, though, many people feel like it's a co-optation, because these corporations often are only speaking out on these issues when it seems like maybe they could lose customers because there's a massive movement in the streets.
Eugene, another one to you before I bring back in Arthur. In terms of where this movement is going, we saw Black Lives Matter flare up in 2016 when there were a number of incidents that we saw exactly like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And we saw that ultimately dies down. How do you keep it going to exact meaningful change?
Well, I think the most important thing is to organize. I was the co-founder of a group called the Stop Police Terror Project DC that grew out of the outrage around Ferguson. And, we formed an organization and we continued to find, different entry points. And we were actually able to push forward on, very important issues around community violence, around reducing funding for the police that we felt was completely unnecessary, pushing forward a conversation around no private jails inside of Washington, D.C. So I would say that the most important way to keep these movements going is for people not just to come out to protest, but to get organized in their own way, however they might join an organization, start an organization, whatever is most comfortable for you, but something where we can be in consistent communication with one another, talking about what we want to see, and also have the ability to present clear, united fronts of large amounts of people so it's very clear what the message is, but that we can also find the different varying levels to dig in. I mean, racism is so pervasive all across this country. There are so many different ways that you could affect change or push change. You know, it's difficult to take just in one bite. And I think it's a long-term movement, but the only way to sustain long-term movements, just as we saw in the civil rights movement, is for people to be organized and to institutionalize their change-making attempts.
And Arthur, you have a diverse legal and business experience in multiple areas, not just corporations, but sports, entertainment, hospitality, gaming. When it comes to pushing the messages from corporations, how do you think the movement can be more effective there?
We have to capitalize on the buying power and philosophies that have always existed. You know, I attended Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and Dr. King is one of my most famous alums. And we have to make sure we use that methodology of pushing the moral and social conscience of corporations, of those who are engaged to stay engaged. You know, right now we see the reaction of emotion and some issues that are negative, but we have to turn the reactionary issue to a revolutionary issue so that we keep pushing a strategy to change laws, to change the economics, to change the educational system. And as corporate citizens, we have to hold other corporate citizens responsible in the boardroom, in the retail stores. And those things have to be selective, strategic, to address each and every systemic issue we have in this country. This is hundreds of years in the making. And for every person we see on video, there are hundreds of thousands of individuals we don't have on video. So that pain is immeasurable. And those cries have been yelling out and haven't been heard. So we have a large, grandiose task to deal with, but we have to make sure that we hold all of our citizens, private and corporate, responsible for the results in this country.
Arthur Sims and Eugene Puryear, we appreciate you being a part of the conversation. Thanks for that.